It's an enormous amount of material. I wish we had more time to search. It has been one of the greatest pleasures of my life.
It's impossible to follow a Rick Lagina speech, so I am not going to even try.
A stunning find in the money pit isn't gold, but a list of names that points to a shocking betrayal at the heart of the big question. They used amazing new machines to find a hidden chamber, a place whispered about only in old legends. Is this the ultimate prize they've all been waiting for, or a trap leading them into more danger? Tune in, because the final seconds of the dig revealed something so incredible it made Rick leave the island in the middle of the night, beneath the weight of years. The air on Oak Island during Season 12 felt tight with hope and worry. Everyone knew the feeling of nearly finding something, a feeling that treasure hunters there had known for more than 200 years. After the exciting but not quite clear finds of the year before in the money pit's messy underground passages with the shaft called Tot 1, the team knew Season 12 needed to be big. Rick Lagina, always hopeful, and his brother Marty, always careful with money and ideas, agreed. This season would be about digging deeper, wider, and using better tools than ever. The main spot was still the famous money pit. This hole had taken millions of dollars and so many dreams, but it still whispered of amazing treasure and old, unanswered questions.
Or at least early to mid 1700s, potentially before that.
So they started putting in a new giant steel tube, which the crew called Cerberus. They named it after the three-headed dog in old stories that guarded the way to the underworld. This tube was meant to help them get to whatever things lay far below. This wasn't just a repeat of Tot 1. Cerberus was wider and built to go even deeper. It also had new, strong insides to fight against the tricky, shifting ground that had caused problems for everyone who had dug there before. "We're not just poking at it this time," Marty said early in the season. His voice showed he was serious about the money being spent, but also a little excited, which was new for him. "We're going for the win." Rick, who always thought things through, added softly, "The island has given us small clues, little bits of a huge problem. Now, we need the main piece." The first weeks of digging with Cerberus were very hard. It showed how much the island did not want to give up its questions. Many loads of dirt, clay, and all sorts of old things left by earlier searchers were lifted out of the shaft. Each bucket was carefully dumped out and looked over by the team. Often Gary Drayton, the metal detecting expert, would wave his machine over the piles, hoping for a lucky find. There were times when things felt hopeless, of course.
So that would be a smoking hot find.
Yes, exactly. Smoking hot find.
One very tough week, the Cerberus shaft suddenly filled with a lot of water. They had to stop digging and use pumps all day and all night to clear it out. "It's like the island pushes back every time we get near something important," said a mud-covered Jack Begley. Even his usual good cheer was low. In these hard times, Rick's quiet belief was a big help. His strong hope helped lift the team's spirits. He would often just stand and look into the dark hole of the shaft, as if he were talking to the question itself without words. Then, in all that mud and hard work, small good things started to happen. Gary, who was amazing at finding metal bits, found a strangely shaped piece of metal that wasn't iron. It came from a layer of dirt that Emma Culligan, their expert on old metals, said was from the late 1600s. "It's not gold, friends, but this piece has a story. It really does," Gary shouted. He held up the old green-coated thing. It was too small to be part of a tool and too oddly shaped to be a coin. No one knew what it was for, but it showed that someone with good metalworking skills, not common for early searchers, had been there. After that, they found a group of wooden beams, deep in a layer of clay that no one had touched before. These were not like the rough logs they had found before. These were shaped, maybe part of a bigger, fancier structure. When they tested the wood to see how old it was, the date that came back was a big surprise. It was possibly from centuries before the money pit was first found in 1795. The feeling in the war room where the team met to plan was alive with new excitement. These finds were not the one thing Rick often talked about, but they were very important. They were proof, as Marty was starting to agree more and more, that something really special happened here long before the first treasure hunters showed up. He would often look at Rick when they talked about this, and they would share a look of hope like only brothers can. Still, even these finds felt like they were just warming up. The island was keeping its biggest question hidden, deep in the earth. Cerberus just needed to push a little bit more. The whole team felt it, with a shared feeling that came from years of searching together. They were close to something much bigger than just a few old things. These small clues were only hints of a much larger question still buried deep below. A hidden room comes to light. The Oak Island team kept working hard, wanting to find the island's deepest questions. Late in Season 12, they reached a key moment. The huge Cerberus tube, or caisson, ground its way down past 200 feet. At that depth, the island's old bedrock started to show its questions. Suddenly, the team's new sonic drilling tools found something strange. It sent a shock of excitement through everyone. The signals were not showing the usual messy mix of the underground water channels called the solution channel. It wasn't the hard, solid sound of bedrock either. Instead, the readings showed a space, a clear, almost box-like area hidden right under the depths they had already explored.
Who's in?
I'm in.
I'm in.
Got a shovel? Everybody's in.
"We've hit something new," Dr. Ian Spooner said. His voice was tight with excitement as he looked at the first scans. "This doesn't look natural. This looks like someone built it." Everyone in the war room went quiet. Rick Lagina leaned closer, his eyes locked on the shaky pictures coming from the tools deep in the earth. Marty, who usually questioned things but was now clearly interested, looked at Craig Tester with a meaningful glance. They made a quick choice: send down the new fiber optic camera. This camera was a new piece of technology, able to handle great pressure and send back very clear pictures from the dark depths. Getting it ready was a slow and tense job. For days, they carefully prepared, checked all the systems, and waited with nervous hope. Then came the moment when Alex Lagina and the drilling crew slowly lowered the camera down into the dark, unknown part of Cerberus. What the camera started to show was more amazing than anything they could have guessed. First, it went down through the cloudy water at the bottom of the shaft. Then, it entered a space. It wasn't a messy pile of fallen rock and dirt, it was a room surprisingly whole and clearly made. People gasped in the war room as the camera's lights cut through the darkness. The walls were not the rough limestone of the island, they were covered with smooth, dark stone slabs that fit together perfectly. Their surfaces were strangely smooth, almost shiny. These stones were not from the island. "Wow, oh wow," Doug Crowell whispered, his eyes wide. "Where did that come from?" As the camera turned, even more amazing things came into view. In one of the stone walls, there was a large, round metal plate. Its surface was covered in complex, swirling patterns and symbols. They didn't look like any known language or pictures. It wasn't gold or silver, it was a dark, polished metal that seemed to drink in the camera's light. Then, under the plate, carved right into a huge stone block, were clearer, more regular symbols. There were crosses, shapes that looked like stars and planets, and something that looked like a simple map. The team was completely frozen watching the screen. Rick was clearly overcome with feeling, his hand gripping Marty's shoulder hard. "This is it," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "This is more than treasure." Marty, for the first time in a long while, didn't have a doubtful comment. His face was full of wonder and shock. I don't know what to say, Rick. I just don't." The video was quickly sent by computer to a small group of experts around the world. Dr. Aaron Taylor was asked for his thoughts on old buildings. A top expert on old symbols from Cambridge University was asked to look at the markings. A famous expert on old metals was also called. What they said at first was thrilling.
A significant collapse had happened. In RP2, we found evidence of different constructs.
Dr. Taylor confirmed that the room was definitely built by people, was very well made, and was likely meant to last and stay hidden. The stone was a type of dark rock called basalt, not found anywhere in Nova Scotia. This meant it had been brought there, which would have taken a lot of work. The metal expert suggested the round plate could be a mix of metals, maybe electrum, a mix of gold and silver, or tembaga, a mix of gold and copper. These metals were sometimes used by cultures before Columbus, but also by certain hidden groups in the Middle Ages for their special meanings. One small story that the team would later tell with smiles was about a moment of pure fear when they were putting the camera down. Just as the camera was about to enter the strange new space, the live picture suddenly went black. All they saw was static. For 3 long, awful minutes, the team feared the worst. Had the room fallen in? Had the camera broken? Was something worse happening? Jack Begley was already putting on a safety rope, ready to go down himself if he had to, when the picture suddenly came back on, even clearer than before. Everyone let out a huge sigh of relief. It was as if the island itself had held its breath before letting them see its question. This room wasn't a place to store treasure in the usual way. It felt more like a message in a bottle, a deliberate sign left by unknown people for someone in the future to find. The whispers from this deep, dark place were not about gold coins, but about lost knowledge and a story that was about to change the Oak Island legend completely. This strange, hidden room was clearly a message from the past, but what did it say? And who had left it there? The Great Templar question comes out. The finding of the hidden room under the money pit sent huge waves of excitement, not just through the Oak Island team, but also out to people all over the world who study history, old objects, and the very old question. The last weeks of Oak Island Season 12 turned into a rush of hard study, talks with experts far away over video calls, and the slow, almost scary understanding that the team had found something incredibly important. The shocking ending was no longer a question of if, but what exactly it would be. The answer was in the strange carvings and the metal plate. Dr. Alastair Finch, the writing expert from Cambridge, worked day and night. He looked at very clear pictures of the symbols on his computer, thousands of miles away. Meanwhile, on the island, the team tried to find any other clues. Emma Culligan and Laird Niven carefully compared the symbols with known marks used by builders and alchemists, people who tried to turn metal into gold, in the Middle Ages and Renaissance.
Maybe this, before being a prison, was a place to hide or, keep something that was special to the order.
Rick Lagina read many old books looking for any similar symbols, any hint of what they were seeing deep underground. The big breakthrough happened late one night in the war room. Dr. Finch's face suddenly lit up on the video screen. "I've got it," he shouted. "I've matched a pattern. This isn't a normal language, it's a code, a kind of picture shorthand, and the style of the pictures. It's definitely connected to a special, lesser-known group of the Knights Templar, the Order of the Sacred Covenant. They were thought to have scattered with special relics and papers after the Templars were broken up in 1307. A deep quiet filled the war room. Only Rick's soft whisper of Templars broke the silence. Dr. Finch went on to explain. He said that the plain geometric symbols, when compared with old church papers from Portugal and Scotland that had recently been put online, formed a complex map of the stars and sky. The metal plate, he thought, wasn't treasure itself. It was a key part, maybe a kind of old tool for measuring star positions called an astrolabe, or a key to solve the code. It was meant to be used with the map. "This room," Dr. Finch said, his voice serious with the weight of his discovery, "is not a place for storing treasure. It is a marker, a signpost. It was carefully built to last and to point the way to something much more valuable than gold. Holy relics, lost religious writings, or maybe even the famous lost records of the Templars." He pointed to one symbol on the map that appeared several times, a unique cross shape inside a small building outline. This symbol, the sanctuary marker, shows up again and again in their writings to mark a final hiding place. He paused, then added something that made the hairs on everyone's arms stand up. "Consider the year 1307, Dr. Finch urged. King Philip IV of France ordered the arrest of all Knights Templar. But legend says that on the eve of the arrests, a fleet of Templar ships hiddenly sailed from the port of La Rochelle, loaded with their order's vast wealth, sacred texts, and perhaps even relics of immense importance. This fleet, by and large, vanished from history. What if the Order of the Sacred Covenant was the group entrusted with this ultimate act of preservation? They wouldn't just be hiding treasure, they'd be safeguarding their entire legacy, their spiritual heart across the vast unknown ocean. such a path would require incredible courage and knowledge. The team sat in stunned silence, processing the magnitude of this theory. Charles Barkhouse, the island historian, finally spoke. But how, Dr. Finch? How could they have navigated such a path so early on? We're talking about the early 14th century. Dr. Finch nodded. An excellent question. While a transatlantic voyage was a monumental undertaking, the Templars were not ordinary knights. They controlled a vast network of ports in the Mediterranean and beyond. They had their own fleets and were master seafarers. There are theories, quite compelling ones, that they possessed navigational knowledge far beyond what was common at the time. Perhaps they had access to portolan charts, highly accurate coastal maps, or even inherited hidden geographical learning from older cultures, knowledge suggesting lands existed across the Atlantic long before Columbus. Some believe they may have learned from Viking accounts or even possessed maps we no longer know about. And remember, he continued, many Templars found refuge in Scotland under King Robert the Bruce. Scotland has a deep maritime history, and it's not unthinkable that a mission like this could have been launched or supported from there, away from the reach of the French king and the Pope. The North Atlantic routes, though treacherous, were not entirely unknown to hardy northern sailors. What this meant was huge. The Oak Island Money Pit, which so many people thought held pirate gold or royal jewels, was potentially something much more amazing. A well-made, long-term project by a hidden Templar group to guide their followers in the future. The treasure wasn't buried riches to be dug up and taken, but a holy question, hidden not in the money pit, but beyond it. The room was the ultimate signpost. Rick Lagina had given so much of his life to this search. He was so moved, his eyes filled with tears. It was a moment that proved him right in many ways, but it also meant a new, even bigger challenge. The idea that these Templar knights fleeing persecution had the skill, the resources, and the sheer will to cross an ocean and create such an intricate marker on this remote island was almost too much to comprehend. So, the money pit, all this time, it was a test, a doorway to their legacy? He wondered out loud, looking at his team, his family. Marty, who no longer doubted so much after seeing all the proof, put a hand on his brother's shoulder. The new details about the Templar fleet and their possible navigational prowess added a layer of profound historical weight to their discovery. "It looks like, brother," he said, his voice filled with a new kind of wonder, "we've found the X that doesn't mark the spot, but tells us where the real spot is, and the people who made it were more determined and capable than we ever imagined." The last scenes of Season 12 showed the team, quiet but also very excited, trying to understand this new truth. Their work changed from digging to protecting and planning. The honeycomb process, a plan they once had for digging many connected shafts to explore the wider money pit area, now seemed like the only smart thing to do. Oak Island's greatest question is closer than ever, but it's not what anyone imagined. What will they uncover next season as they follow these ancient clues? Like and subscribe for more.